As I'm playing with the camera like an idiot. Ta-da! The rhythm of life. The rhythm of life, like most things, cannot be understood until we understand or come into the understanding of death. Through the rhythm of death, we understand the purpose of our life. A little more of us dies inside each day, so we can elevate into our highest and truest potential. The attunement of the natural rhythms. Waiting is an active state of awareness, learning in the power of stillness. Say that one more time. Attunement to the natural rhythms. Attunement to the natural rhythms. Waiting is the active state of awareness. Is the active state of awareness and learning the power of stillness. I'm going to do something different. I just did the TikTok video, it's up now, about repetition. And I pulled a card. So I want to do this build, pull some cards, and give you a nice daily dose of a reading that pairs it pairs nicely with our the weekly reading on the God Hour podcast. So tune in to tap out to the God Hour podcast, and you'll get the pairing or the nice pairing we got with this to go with this reading I'm about to knock into. In order to understand the rhythm of life, it's good for us to come into first understanding in stillness or the rhythm of death. Coming into that harmony with ourselves through reflection. How do you start your day is one of the main major factors. How you start your day is going to be one of the major factors in you either being more, becoming that healed aspect of yourself, or deciding not to heal yourself. You always got that decision. You got one or two decisions. Either you're going to heal or you're going to repeat. Either you're going to allow the reflections of your ego to keep you going through that same cycle and you come back down through into this space, or you're going to allow yourself to really tap into that. But before we get deep into that, I'm going to pull the 3 cards from my deck. First card, as I said, reflection. Let's see what we need to reflect upon and to bring ourselves into unity. Second card, fated meeting. And our third and final card that we'll pull from this stack and then we'll build into is Uriel in the Sphinx. So when we look at the reflection card, going into the reflection, now we have some guidance into our day, what we're going to reflect upon. The fated meeting. The fated meeting, in the fated meeting card, is talking about that relationship. It can be an old relationship. It can be a new relationship. But most of the time, when I'm telling you about your shadow work, that best relationship to get tapped into and deal with is the relationship with you. No other relationship that you are going to, every relationship that you're going to come into, that fated meeting of your coming into that space is always going to be something to teach you. So in this case, what is it going to teach you? Through Uriel and the Sphinx, Uriel being the fire, that fire aspect, the Sphinx means digging deeper into ourselves. So now when we're using our aspects of reflecting into our day, the first thing that gets challenged in a lot of our relationships with ourselves are our old behaviors. Every time that you go into a new space, the first thing that's going to be tested is your old behaviors. The things that you have to invest into. Remember, yesterday I talked about investing into that change. But the only apology being change behavior. So as we're looking into our reflection of today, what makes us so scared, that what gives us into that state of fear to actually apologize? The first apology that we got to give is to ourselves. And since the only apology is change behavior, it gives us some insight onto if we're not changing our behaviors, are we truly apologetic to ourselves? And this is reflected in those faded meetings, those relationships, those friendships, the things that chime into your old. Are they chiming into your old behavior, the way that you acted, the way that you were? You came through your whole space based on that trauma, and now you were sitting there hurt the entire time. You were hurt. So now in every relationship, every bonding, every meeting, whether it's going to your job, you go into your job because you're hurting for money. You're going into, you keep that same friend, that same people around you because you are hurting, and they remind you of something. Or they come in and they chime in and hit you with that, the only reason that they're connecting to you is based on the behavior, your trauma, the event that you have not dealt with. Once you deal with that, now you can see the assignment, because I'm always telling you guys, everybody has an assignment. Everybody has a purpose, an assignment, and a lesson plan. Until you understand your lesson plan, until you understand your assignment, you can't come into your purpose. You're going to always be coming into these meetings of the minds. And the meetings, is it going to be a meeting of the mind, of the memories, or is it going to be a meeting of the heart? Is it going to be a meeting of the minds, or is it going to be a meeting of the heart? Meetings of the heart are based on expansion. They're based on exploring. That's what that Sphinx is talking about. Getting deep into the aspects of exploration. So now that you're looking at this aspect of these relationships that you're coming into, friendships, old bonds, new bonds, whatever they are, they're all meant to teach you how to dig deeper. Remember, there's no apologies. The only apology is change behavior. So change behavior means means to expand. Change behavior does not mean to mask it behind something else, or I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to go find another reason for me to do what I'm doing, and I'm going to find a slipstream. Stop trying to look for loopholes, because all you're doing is getting yourself stuck, and you're just making that build up to yourself. Think about it just from the traumatic point of view that I talked about in this week's podcast. Talking about that primordial instinct, that behavior. Stuck in that old behavior because of the emotional catalyst that got you there. Remember, I've talked about it before when we got into the aspects of most of you are stuck where you were, that first trauma happened. So if you were 12, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, right now you in your 30s, your 40s, you older physically, but you are mentally and emotionally trapped in the cycle of the development process of when you were 12. So whatever happened to you were 12, if you ain't dealt with it, every time that you deal with something in the current, because the past, the present, and the future, all in the same continuum, every time what you haven't dealt with emotionally back here, what you haven't reflected on emotionally back here, is now going to be the faded meeting that's going to be shown to you in your current state. So now you're sitting in this state, you still react as the 12-year-old. You still react as the hurt 8-year-old. You still react as the hurt 5-year-old. And then everything else that was programmed on top of it, based on that indoctrination from your mother, from your father, from your uncle, from your aunt, the family aspect, when they hit you with you're grown, when they hit you with I'm grown, you understand when you get older, all of these aspects, those are the things that you're going to carry on through that emotional channel into that space. So the first thing that you're going to defend, without you even thinking about it, you can say that you hate your mother, love your mother, whatever it may be. But that's what you're going to champion on into your current state. you're going to use that as your defense. That becomes your behavior. That of what you do not understand, it became your behavior. So now you're sitting in that space. Every time you get challenged about something, every time you tap into something, or something gets challenged within you, the first thing you go to is, I'm grown. You stifle your growing. I've done this my entire career. I've done this my entire lap of career to get to this point. Okay, cool. Now that you've acknowledged that you've done that to get to this point, and you're noticing that doing that same thing over and over and over and over again isn't getting you any further, now it's time to accept what it is that you haven't dealt with. Now it's time for you to accept what it is that you have not dealt with. Because you have acknowledged that you've used it, but you haven't accepted it. So now you can't come into that state of digging deeper. This is where a lot of us get stuck in, that digging deeper, allowing ourselves to dig deeper, because we use the emotional catalysts and those conduits outside of us to keep us from actually tapping into that lesson. We stay in the karmic cycle. I talked about it in the podcast. Talked about it in this week's podcast. We'll get deeper into it on Friday. When you're stuck within that space, based on keeping that behavior and that identity intact, you want to keep that identity intact, you want to keep that behavior intact, you're going to surround yourself with like-minded individuals based upon that traumatic effect. So now everybody around you knows, this is trauma bonding, everybody around you knows the problem, the issue, the isolated incidents, but no one's talking about the isolated incidents. So in their environments are reflections of not dealing with that internal conflict. In that environment is the reflection of not dealing with what needs to be dealt with. And then you get the comfortability. So now when you get that tap on top of the head, you get that tap on the head that's telling you, hey, look up instead of keep looking down. You keep looking down into that rut that you build instead of you looking up and being like, you know what? I really need to take this moment in time and reflect with myself. I really need to take this moment in time and reflect with myself. I really need to take this moment in time to really address what's going on in myself, and why do I keep allowing myself to repeat and go through that constant repetition? Why do I keep hurting myself? Why do I keep making this detrimental cause to my behavior? Why have I accepted such a high tolerance? Because everything outside of you is simply a reflection of that for you to experience or observe. So when you get stuck and distracted and triggered by, oh my God, another vaccine. Oh my God, there's still slaves in Libya. The external narratives, the reason that you're triggered by those is because it's showing you something about the conflict inside of yourself. Everything outside of you in this space, while you down here, so you don't repeat another life sentence, is to teach you something. It's to teach you the one side or the other doesn't matter. It's about coming to that neutrality and understanding how to transmute through all points. Nothing should stop you from flowing. Whenever something is questioning or putting you into a space where you're not flowing, you're not moving, you're able to stop, you're stuck, that means it's time to address that blockage. It's time, because that blockage usually is the guilt, the insecurity, that old pain, that emotional channel that you haven't dealt with. It's time to reflect on the emotional channel. It's time to take yourself into the aspects of these fated meetings, because they're not just popping up out of nowhere. Every time you seem to move forward, I'll give you an example. Every time you seem to move forward, do you notice at certain times, certain things seem to come back up? You seem to have to revisit something, whether it be in the form of a thought that, and the longer that thought, that breath, that now matriculating into the thought, then now matriculating into the person, the place, the thing that's now hitting you with the, what lesson do I need to learn? But while you're sitting there stuck in the old behavior, not wanting to let go of the old behavior, not wanting to let go of it because it involves becoming vulnerable, you're going to automatically, outside of yourself, expect others to understand. No one's going to understand you deeper than you understand yourself. No one is going to love you deeper than you love yourself. No one is going to respect you deeper than you respect yourself. Everything outside of you, based on that observation, just in that thought alone, it's meant to enhance the love you have for yourself. This is why when you keep seeing the cycle of, oh my God, your homegirl or your homeboy been in 6 relationships in 6 months, and you're like, why do you keep doing the same things? Because they are not willing to tap into finding themselves first. They're scared to be alone. Yes, completing a compliment. They're scared to be alone. They're scared to take on that trip that you took. And for you, you took on that trip to be alone with yourself. Maybe it's time for you to take some more time alone with yourself. Even if you are inside of a space with a co-inhabitating spaces. That's a tricky part. And before we get into that tricky part, I'm gonna pull 5 more cards. Let's pull 5 more cards. I'm having fun. Let's pull 5 more cards. And y'all know to tap in tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We don't get into no U-turns. First card that I pulled off top, 10 of Cups. Addressing them cups that you keep filling up. Second card, 3 of Pentacles. That represents the aspects of your works. It's time to address that, end of that cycling of always filling up all these other cups to maintain a behavior. Once you understand your works, you understand your energy. That's in that Knight of Wands moving forward. Now, in you understanding your energy, you have to embrace, through that 9 of Swords, the hurts of yourself, the internal hurts, the internal wounds, the internal conflicts, the internal aspects with yourself. Greetings. The internal conflicts with yourself that are leaving you hurt, and the external conflicts that you are going to cut. As you're addressing the wounds of the internal, you will cause the severing of the external. This is one of the hardest things for us when we're coming into our healing phase, is addressing that when we address the internal wounds of ourselves, the things that those wounds, when we address those scars, when we address those cuts, the knife of 1,000 cuts, we automatically, in correspondence externally, address what needs to be severed, because it no longer has the purpose to tap into your energy. And just like I'm using the cards to illustrate the energy, the hermit phase. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to go within. It's time for you to sit there and be like, you know what? Let me take 15 minutes to myself. I take 15 minutes to myself as soon as I wake up. From my 15 minutes, I get ready for my day, head to the gym, straight gym alchemy. It was crazy that today, every rep that I did 4 reps of 8 in everything that I did today. So I'm embracing that alchemy into that space, building and creating something. Came back in, first card that I pulled off the deck and I did the TikTok about was the aspects of repetition. In order to break the cycle of repetition, the things that you keep repeating, it's going to take you coming into the aspects of that reflection, taking that moment to reflect. See the moon up there? You see the moon up there? That means reflecting, investing into the changes. Understanding these fated meetings with yourself, because every meeting that you're meeting is with yourself. It's supposed to help you dig deeper. It's supposed to help you dig deeper and tap into that hidden fire. I want you to be the best. Stop looking at everything outside of yourself as a test that is supposed to hurt. I said it, the last thing that I said in this week's podcast was coming into your healing, coming into this shadow work, doing your shadow work, coming into your healing, coming into your true self is similar to, if you've not seen the movie Carlito's Way, go watch Carlito's Way. You have not seen the movie Carlito's Way. My favorite line from that movie is after Kleinfeld killed the mob boss and his son. Killed the mob boss and his son, and he was like, "Davey, you a gangster now." There's no book. There's no class. There's no skipping the line. You gonna have to go through it. Once you acknowledge to yourself that you're ready to embrace change. Once you acknowledge to yourself, whether you a king or a queen, God or a goddess, Titan, Alchemist, whatever you want to tap into, that's the test that's going to be put before you. It's no more picking sides. It's understanding the middle point. Coming to that middle point with yourself. Coming in the center with yourself. Because as you come in the center with yourself, you understand the need for everything on that side, and you understand the need for everything on that side. Everything on that side is based on experience. Everything on that side is based on observation. Once you tap into those, you now tap out of staying stuck in that cycle of your humanity. This week's episode on the God Hour podcast, we got into primordial instinct. Understanding that the behavior is the effect of the emotional catalyst. What has you doing what you keep doing? It's attached to the emotional aspect that you have not wanted to work within. That's what's keeping you at an imbalance, and that's what has you using your instinct to survive and not using your intuition to shift, change, and evolve. God Hour Podcast is available on multiple platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Breaker, iHeartRadio. I think you still can say, Alexa, play God Hour. Tap in to tune out. Get the weekly reading and get the weekly reading from Papa, and then get that in-depth breakdown from Lucy. Yes, we are many. We are legion. We are many. And then after you do that, tune back in 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God Hour Show, Facebook Live. God Hour Show, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight we getting into No U-Turns. Stay tuned for that video. No U-Turns. Understanding the aspects of when you keep turning around and you keep getting confused, the reason that you keep getting confused in your path is because you're taking that U-turn. That's the confusion that's behind you. You stepped out of confusion. But you have not learned consumption. That's what we're getting into tonight. I want you to be the best. You're interested within services from book that shadow work therapy consultation so we can get into your inner healing aspects, so we can put you into that space for the inner healing aspects. Hit me up for the readings. Hit me up for readings. Products. Hit me up at GODCoAlchemistLLC.com, or you can hit me in the inbox and we can build that dialogue. I'm also, if you are interested in doing a build on a podcast, if you have a product or a service, if you want to get sponsorship on ad space on the God Hour podcast, hit me up at setcarlonijas@gmail.com or call text first 910-777-7708. I want you to be fucking great. The only way to tap into your fucking greatness is to stop allowing that behavior to stop you from tapping into your true rhythm. Through death, we understand life. I love you. We love us. Ashe.